Welcome to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast will contain detailed spoilers. For spoiler-free reviews of newly released films, please check out our channel Reviews Without Remorse on YouTube and VidMe. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show.
And welcome to 2018. I'm David, and today we are doing Joe's top movies and stinkers for 2017.
Dun, 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 dun.
This is episode 46. Hey, Joe.
What's going on, my friend?
Now, for the audience, how we're going to do this is as close to narcissistic masturbation as you're going to get.
Absolutely.
We are not going to have any news. This is only just about us. Today it's about Joe. Next week it'll be about me.
Yeah, in the spirit of full disclosure, we're doing this just a couple days shy of New Year's. I'll be away this weekend, so I figured the sooner we do this, the more editing time I have, and so much the better. And next week, if something comes up, we'll mention it. But hopefully, Dave gets his chance at self-indulgence also.
All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with Joe's honorable mentions, and then we're going to go down from 10 to 1, and then he will do his stinkers.
Yep. And like last year, I have, aside from a couple honorable mentions, basically just three turds for this year.
Let's get right on it.
And should I use the same Flash Gordon music as last year?
Absolutely. So, let's start with the honorable mentions. How many you got?
I have quite a list, to be honest with you. And honestly, again, in full disclosure, I even said to Dave, I said, you know what? I could even do a top 15 this year. He said, nah, let's keep a tradition. Anybody can just rattle off every good movie they saw this year. You got to narrow it down a little bit. But honestly, this was a pretty good year for movies, I thought. I mean, there were a couple, little turds in the punch bowl like every year. But honestly, I thought I spent a lot more time this year being blown away by some things that really surprised the hell out of me, as opposed to the letdowns. I really saw some really great movies this year.
Yeah, me too.
All right, so I'll start with my honorable mentions. First of all, not that this is an honorable mention, but I did want to mention that I did mean to see Blade Runner 2049 again.
Had your job once. I was good at it.
I know.
Haven't quite gotten to it. I will probably watch it this evening because Dave just got it for me. But yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it was something I wanted to kind of revisit it, but just never got around to it. I did, as we said last week, I wondered if we were a little harsh on it. But yeah, but hey, you know what? All you can do is sort of run with your first impressions on things, and that's exactly what we did. So anyway, honorable mentions: John Wick 2.
Good afternoon, Mr. Wick. It's been a long time.
I'd like it tasting.
Good follow-up. I thought it was a solid follow-up to the original John Wick, which itself was a pleasant surprise. A solid action flick, so I was happy with the second one. Get Out.
Get out! Yo! Yeah! Yo! Get
It was another pleasant surprise. It was a solid... had trepidations when I first heard about it. Again, you're talking about a horror movie with elements of social racism and stuff, and also comedy. And I'm saying, wow, that sounds like a mess of nothing. But it worked. A very original take on a thriller. I kind of find it's more thriller than horror movie, but boy, does it work.
Is that a monkey?
Kong Skull Island was another one that, again, everyone said was a stinker. For a Saturday afternoon matinee type monster movie, it's exactly what it set itself up to be. I enjoyed it as what it was. Maybe, the fact that people sort of downplayed it so much, maybe that helped it out a little bit. But I had nothing but fun with that one, so that was a good one. It.
Bill, if you will come with me, you'll float too.
It was another one that I thought was a very competent horror movie. I wouldn't call it super scary, but in the genre of Stranger Things, and it's a combination of the the classic Stephen King. It's almost like a lot of Stephen King movies that we got in the past were either dead super horror movies or something like Stand By Me, which is not horror at all. This one sort of bridged the gap and gave us a horror thriller that also had some heart and soul. So I was pleasantly surprised with it.
We are not savages. Apes fight only to survive.
War for Planet of the Apes. I thought was a terrific conclusion to that trilogy, and frankly, I felt like it got kind of dwarfed by some of the other blockbusters that were out this year. So it kind of slipped under the radar, I thought, and was a little didn't quite get the credit it deserved. But I thought it was a very good, solid conclusion to a really good trilogy.
Dr. Marston, Wonder Woman has drawn criticism for being full of depictions of bondage, homosexuality, and other sex perversions. Would you say that's a fair assessment of your work?
Professor Marsden and his Wonder Woman. Mary would kill me if I did not mention this movie. It was her favorite of the year.
Wow.
Yeah, she absolutely loved it. I thought it was absolutely terrific. It was a smart, tight screenplay filled with a lot of heart, and at no point, for something that is an exploration in alternative lifestyles, I suppose, it never once got preachy. It showed you the heart and soul in it. So I walked out of that one very impressed. I mean, not something that would normally be on my top 10, but again, a smart screenplay.
You weren't kidding about having an extensive also ran list.
Well, I mean, honestly, I was gonna burn through these faster, but since we're not doing any news whatsoever, and I got a whole hour to fill up.
Hey, dude, you're the one editing it, so that's up to you how fast or slow you want to do or what clips you want to add.
You can practically see it from here. What? Home.
Dunkirk. This was powerful. Powerful is not the right word. It was a thrill ride, and I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. It was probably not as epic as I thought it would be, but boy, does Christopher Nolan know how to do a realistic thrill ride. Again, no CGI whatsoever. This is sort of the antithesis to something like Pearl Harbor. It looked like it was done with practical effects or just real airplanes and real bombs and real... I mean, it was nothing... It really kept you in the moment, and the music never even got had an edginess to it.
Yeah,
and it didn't evolve into
like the beating of a heart or a ticking of a clock.
Yeah, like a nervousness, and right, it did not didn't try to blow up and become like the Thin Red Line or Platoon or anything. It was what it was. It was a very specific time in that war, and wow, were you just really well done.
And yet didn't make your top 10. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean my top. I honestly, to be brutally honest, it kind of went back and forth. My top 10 was kind of fluid throughout the year. I mean, I kind of started paying attention to my top 10 back in October before I even had 10. Honestly, Dunkirk, I really debated for a while. As smart and as technically impressive as it was, it I wouldn't say it really got me in the gut like other movies had. Still very worth seeing once in your lifetime. Okay, and lastly, and this one, I tell you, I really wanted this one on my top 10. It just barely got nudged out, and I finally had to sort of... In fact, at one point, I lost count and I had 11, and I realized I had to I had to sort of move it down, and I was really sad because I really wanted this one on my top 10. And this would have been one of my few surprises on my top 10, actually.
Okay.
Brigsby Bear.
There are other people out there, just like us, right?
Look at the grazer bugs, James. They're out there every night. The difference is we have dreams and imaginations to help us escape. And no one can take that away from you. Ever.
Did you catch that by any chance?
I have it, but I haven't watched it yet. But I have actually heard a lot of people say some really good things about it, so I may have to give that a watch.
Yeah, this was really... It's hard to explain it, and you don't want to give much away, but it was honestly... It's a little touch of Paul Thomas Anderson meets Napoleon Dynamite meets Room, and I don't mean The Room, I mean Room, which was the story about the woman and the son who was kidnapped. And you're probably saying, "Ooh, that does not sound like a combination I see working out very well." And it dances the line of being a little too weird for its own good. But honestly, I was sort of mesmerized, but I thought the concept was fascinating. And again, it's playful enough that, like I said, it does sort of dip into that almost Napoleon Dynamite kind of sense of humor, but it has heart, and it really sort of makes you think about how this situation would play out in real life. Not a perfect film. It's not a perfect film, and other people might look at it and say, that's not how I would imagine things would happen. And that's fair too, but again, I felt like the final product was really kind of mesmerizing and fascinating. I really thought, like I said, the setup was so interesting that it kind of kept me involved the whole time. And I really did enjoy it much more than I guessed I would. I didn't know anything about it going in. Just check it out. That's the only thing I can say. Check it. I don't want to ruin anything, so just check it out.
All right, I shall.
All right, so those are my honorable mentions. It's time for my top 10 top films of the year.
Squadron 40! Die!
Number 10!
Number 10, It Comes at Night.
I just want to talk. And I want honest answers. Do you have any idea what's going on out there?
Ooh.
Have you seen it?
I haven't. I haven't seen it yet, though. But yeah, I have heard, again, good things about it.
This is one of those where if you go in expecting a kind of a classic horror movie, you're probably going to be disappointed. I really like this one because it really did keep you on your toes and keep you guessing the entire time. It gets kind of bleak and you just don't know who to trust. You don't know what the hell's going on. I think by the end, you're still guessing. It's one of those movies where when the end comes, you're still trying to figure out what you just saw.
Right.
And just based on that, I thought it was terrific. It was really, really well done, really well shot, terrific looking film. Again, just kind of edge of your seat the entire time. And it's an exercise in possible paranoia. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and you know, it's one of those that you'll think about after it's over.
All right, cool. I will. I love horror movies. I haven't been very horror movie-ish lately, so I should definitely check that out.
Yeah, I would definitely give it a look. Number 9, and this I'm sure you will not find a surprise. Baby Driver.
So you just starting your day, or did you just get off?
They call, I go, you know.
So what is it you do?
I'm a driver.
Ah, thank God. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, what is there to say about this one? It was awesome. It was really original. It was fun. It had good style. There was parts that I kind of felt like they sort of fell into certain cliches.
As they do.
Yeah, I mean, some of the bad guys were just kind of bad just because they're bad, and, you know, a lot of things, you know. But all in all, it was a really original, exciting car chases, as you know. No CGI whatsoever, just good old-fashioned stunts, stunt work, really good stuff, and just a lot of fun. Kind of a classic road movie. Mm-hmm. Again, and really well done.
Probably some of the best editing from 2017 of any movie.
Agreed. Very much so. And good casting, too, by the way. Good cast of people.
Excellent flick.
Yep. Number 8, I'm sure will not be a surprise. Number 8, Wonder Woman.
What is this place? Who are you people?
We are the bridge to a greater understanding.
Right.
Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman. DC finally pulls it off, finally gives us a superhero film that we can love, that we can fall in love with, that we can be inspired by, excited with. Just a great film.
That isn't ashamed to be a superhero movie?
Not ashamed to be a superhero movie, exactly. Not ashamed to use color. Not ashamed for somebody to be a good guy just for the sake of being a good guy and wanting to help. Did not reinvent the wheel by any stretch. I mean, but again, it embraced the idea of a classic superhero film. Something that, as we have talked to death this year about, DC has just missed the boat on. So Wonder Woman was the saving grace, the shining star in the DCEU this year. And frankly, if it wasn't for Wonder Woman, I don't even think anybody would have gone to see Justice League, frankly.
Yeah, probably. That's actually a very true statement.
Yeah.
And I'm also willing to bet that is the last of the DC Cinematic Universe movies on your list.
Yes, it is. Well, on this list anyway. Moving on, again, not a surprise, another superhero film, Thor Ragnarok.
So much has happened since I last saw you. I lost my hammer, like yesterday, so that's still pretty fresh.
And then I went on a journey of self-discovery, where I met you.
I can't fault that as well. Go on.
I mean, again, this was the one I mentioned before. I said this was the one I think all year long. Once I saw the first trailer, I just could not wait for this one. This was my most anticipated film, and it delivered. It absolutely delivered. We said it was not perfect because in doing what it wanted to do, it had to sort of throw a lot of other things under the bus, things that had come prior, which, we had mixed feelings about. I had mixed feelings about. But the end product was a really exciting, really fun, really visually exciting, funny, just a terrific action film. And, I think it leads Thor from, the second phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe into the next phase, which is going to be the Infinity War and a more cosmic MCEU, I think. And again, I just absolutely loved it. I frankly felt like I couldn't have asked for much more. The scenes with the Hulk were fantastic, a lot of fun, and it was just terrific. I mean, I really enjoyed every moment of that one. Every visual was a treat. And again, great work by Taika Waititi. Nice job.
Taika Waititi.
Number 6, Atomic Blonde.
I chose this life. And someday, it's going to get me killed. But not today.
Wow.
That one surprised me, honestly.
Yeah, surprising me a little bit too. Please continue.
I honestly, that was one of those where people said, "Oh, you would really like this. This is right up your alley." And I'm always like, every time people say that, I always kind of go, "Oh yeah," because I'm expecting something that's kind of close to the mark, but not quite. The Kingsman comes to mind, something I really should like, but it's a little too silly for me. Right. And I've always said that films like that, where they have that sort of kinetic action, whatever we call it, hyper-realistic
action, yeah.
And I've always said, if they could just manage to keep one foot on the ground, then you probably get the perfect cocktail. And I think John Wick is the closest I can think of. I thought Atomic Blonde hit it perfectly, where the action is just way over the top action, but it's done in a way that you're watching, instead of watching slow-mo, triple Lindy, cartwheel, backflips, and whatever, this was all, in real time, highly choreographed fight scenes, and some of them would last so long that they feel like they feel like long one take shots, and you're just like, holy cow! Like it really gets just amazing. The fighting is, some of it is brutal. It is visceral. I mean, just some of it you feel the punches. It's just so well done. I mean, it's sort of a balance between the hyper-realistic action films and something like a Jason Bourne, which wants to take itself more or less pretty seriously. Right. I was really, and not to mention it takes place in the 80s. The soundtrack was phenomenal. I mean, some of the music in this film was stuff that I had heard in the 80s and didn't even really like necessarily back then, but hearing in this context, I kind of sort of started to fall in love with it again. Just really well done. I really thought this was a terrific film, and it really keeps you guessing too. You don't know who the good guy is, you don't know who the bad guy is. Just all around well done.
Very cool. Is it? We're in the top 5?
We're in the top 5 now. Number 5, Spider-Man: Homecoming.
What's up, guys? Wait a minute. You guys aren't the real Avengers. I can tell Hulk gives it away.
awesome.
No surprise there, right?
No, not at all. I'm actually surprised it's not higher.
I kind of am too. And again, some of the other ones that are higher, I think when you hear them, you'll be like, okay. Spider-Man Homecoming, again, was a home run. We couldn't wait to get Spider-Man back in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We hoped it would happen. We were surprised when it did. I mean, he was great in Civil War. It was a terrific intro, but then we heard the Spider-Man movie is coming, and you just had your fingers crossed. Please don't drop the ball, Marvel. And another home run, just every time. I tell you, I mean, we keep saying it, but they're on a winning streak. They're on a terrific winning streak, and I'm enjoying everything that they're doing.
We are definitely reaping the benefits of their winning streak, yes.
Absolutely. And again, this was sort of I love the fact that they did Spider-Man the way we haven't seen it lately. I said when I saw it, I would have liked, the perfectionist in me, the completist in me would have liked to see the origin done, but I completely get it that it would have been probably a mistake to do another origin story so soon after the last two origin stories. So the way they did it was they took it and just gave you the best Spider-Man film that you could have gotten. Villains are terrific. Best villain probably in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I think. Everything about it was a home run. I loved it had heart and soul, and you rooted for the Spider-Man. Here's a superhero you can root for and get excited by. I just thought it was terrific. Okay, number 4. This one I know you will agree with. Number 4, Wind River.
I need emergency assistance.
What's your location?
The Wind River Indian Reservation.
I'm Jane Banner, FBI.
Welcome to Wyoming. You by yourself?
It's just me.
That's Corey Lambert. He's the one who found the body.
Oof.
Right?
My God.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that hit your top list, bub.
Oh, yeah. Jeremy Renner is a guy who for the longest time could not figure out how. I mean, every once in a while there's a new movie star that sort of shows up in everything. Shia LaBeouf comes to mind, and you're wondering why is this guy showing up everywhere?
Sam Huntington, Jai Courtney, and now Jeremy Renner.
All of a sudden they're in the top franchises, and you're saying how did they work their way up? I don't know where they came from, and frankly, I'm not necessarily getting them. Jeremy Renner falls right into that category. He's been in the Bourne series. He's been in the Avengers, obviously, as Hawkeye. He's been in the Mission Impossible franchise already. And frankly, he was a guy who I felt like could have sat behind me in homeroom in high school, and I never would have noticed him. When you watch Wind River, you say to yourself, wow, Jeremy Renner is for real. He is no joke. He gave a performance in this film that honestly I would never have imagined he was capable of a performance where you really feel like he is a different person. You believed this character from beginning to end, and I was just absolutely blown away by his performance. The film is a gut punch at moments. It's hard to sit through at times. It's a thriller that does not pull any punches. It keeps you guessing the entire time, and honestly, I felt like it's the kind of film that I just didn't blink for 2 hours. Everything about it was mesmerizing. The setting is both beautiful and tragic at the same time. It really did sort of pack a wallop, and I highly recommend Wind River. If I had to compare it to anything, Hell or High Water was on my list last year. This year, it's Wind River. Same writer, same guy who wrote Hell or High Water, wrote Wind River. And
that guy is off to a hell of a career.
He sure is. He really does write smart thrillers.
Yeah. Well, that leaves us 3.
Okay.
I have an idea about 2 of them. Not so sure about one of them.
You're probably gonna be warm.
Okay.
Back to something a little more fun. Number 3, Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
The fate of the universe lies on your shoulders. Now, whatever you do, don't push this button. Because that will set off the bomb immediately, and we'll all be dead. Now, repeat back what I just said.
I am Groot.
No! No, that's the button that will kill everyone. Try again.
I am Groot.
Mm-hmm.
I am Groot.
Uh-huh.
I'm Groot.
No!
Yep. That was one of the ones I figured. Oh my god. You know, that movie, I've actually seen that a couple of times now, and I swear to you, it gets better each time.
Right? I tell you, I mean, and I really did not expect much in the first Guardians. I mean, I was a skeptic like a lot of people when, I mean, we're just sort of getting the MCU off the ground. We did our Captain Americas and our Iron Mans and our Thors and all the safe stuff. Then they mentioned Guardians of the Galaxy, and I'm like, oh no, they're going to venture off into weird territory here. No one's going to know who that is. It's going to be the first slip up. And it ends up being one of the more popular films in the MCU. And so then when I saw it and I enjoyed it, but again, when I saw the first one, I didn't remember it too well. It seemed a little disposable, but I knew I enjoyed it. When the second one came out, I rewatched the first one and then went out and saw Guardians 2, and I was like, oh my God, this is terrific. I mean, I was enjoying every minute of this film. And again, it's not just a matter of, I mean, it's visually impressive. The characters are likable and fun. The stakes, you feel the weight of the actual stakes without overplaying it.
Mm-hmm.
Yet the genius of the film is really in the interplay between the characters, how the characters relate to each other, where, you know, what makes each one of these characters tick. And again, some of them, I'm sitting here sympathizing with a talking raccoon, for God's sakes, and identifying with the things that make him who he is. I mean, it's frankly kind of amazing, and you know, there's an incredible amount of satisfaction when a lot of the characters have a redemption, and just wow. And again, a film that ended with 5 separate post-credit sequences,
setting up God knows what.
Yeah, I mean, and not fluff. I mean, all of them had something to do with the film you just saw, and the storylines that were involved. And usually, when you got so much going on, it usually just makes a convoluted mess. But here, it's just a tapestry. I mean, it really is just a symphony of fun and interesting characters and everything. Everything just works. So I was just totally blown away by Guardians 2, and I just had a great time with it.
Yeah, it's a very difficult movie to really complain about. And if you had any enjoyment of the first one, the second one definitely builds upon that enjoyment and takes it to a wonderful level, I would say.
I would agree with that, yeah. It really does just hit some heights that it just hits every mark. All right, number 2 will surprise you, number 1 will not. That's
number 1. I already know what your number 1 is.
I'm sure you probably do.
Yeah.
But number 2 will hopefully be just slightly out of left field.
Okay, hit me.
Number 2, best film of the year, Mother.
We spend all our time here. I want to make a paradise.
She redid all of it, every last detail. And she breathed life back into every room.
Are you happy?
I love you.
Wow, Aronofsky's flick.
Yes, have you seen it?
Not yet. I got the feeling that was one of those sit down, take a deep drink, and
it is
type situations.
It is, and I tell you what, it's funny it was probably right around mid-October when I really started to say, hey, the end of the year is coming. I should start keeping track of the great movies this year, and I kind of had the unofficial top 10 floating around, and I remember thinking that there was a lot of stuff out that I needed to catch up on, and of course I was on my month-long business trip, and you had you scored me a couple of movies to keep me busy while I was working, and I watched a lot of films this year, and some of them, honestly, if it didn't grab me in the first 15-20 minutes, I just said forget it. I mean,
Lucky Logan.
Got bored and stopped watching it. Yeah, that Lucky Logan was one. And once in a while, one would just grab me, and I was just hooked. And Mother was one of those films. I put it on, and I sort of forgot about it. Honestly, I remember it came out sort of the beginning of the year. I heard interesting things about it. I remember sort of putting it on my mental, checklist. I should see that when it comes out because it sounds interesting. And when I watched it, holy cow! I got to tell you, I was not prepared for what it was. Without giving anything away, it starts off with this couple, and it's Jennifer Lawrence, who normally I can't stand and won't bother with because I felt like overnight she became the most self-important something or other in Hollywood, to the point where she'll brag about how she's rude to her fans, so hopefully they won't walk up to her. And, and of course, the husband is played by Javier Bardem. And it just starts off, it's a couple in a house, and she's rebuilding the house, and you don't really know what's going on. And one by one, like a stranger stops in and whatever. And I'll just leave it at that and just say it starts to go forward. And before you know it, it transcends into something. The only thing, and it was sort of pitched as a horror movie, and I wouldn't call it that, but boy, it does have some unnerving, unsettling parts to it. And the only thing I can really compare it to, and when I tell you this from me, this is high praise, is Jacob's Ladder.
Oof, that is high praise. I know that's a huge movie to you.
Yeah, it's a movie that I absolutely adore because it sort of, there's movies that try to sort of touch at this kind of nightmarish dreamscape level of storytelling, and this one is the only thing I've seen in recent years that comes close. And it really does. It keeps you guessing, and it just happens on a different level where you're not even sure anymore, like what's real, what's not real, and it's hypnotic. And and not only that, but it also does rely on. It's sort of a modern day. The word that they keep using is allegory, and that works perfectly fine. I find it to be sort of a modern day parable, and.
Ooh.
So yeah, I mean it sort of tells you a story, and you're sort of trying to am I getting it right? Am I getting it right? Because I mean it's probably one of the smartest screenplays I've seen. I mean, this to me honestly was like a genius screenplay, to the point where everything means something, and it's mesmerizing, and it really hits you. It hits you in the brain and the stomach at the same time, and the heart. Honestly, I mean, it was one of the most impressive experiences I've had in a long time with a film. I mean, I've seen Aronofsky's other work, some of it. It's impressive, but this one, wow, does he hit a crescendo with this one?
He can definitely be hit or miss, so I can see that.
Yeah. I mean, but I really felt like this was his masterpiece, and I was just massively impressed. And frankly, I feel like it's incredibly underrated. Like a lot of people, said, "Oh, it's really interesting. It's really this," but you may like it, you may not like it. I thought it was a masterpiece, and I really can't praise it enough. And like I said, I can't say much about it. I don't want to spoil anything, so I just highly recommend checking it out.
All right, man. I shall.
Which means you probably know already what my number one must be.
I figure you must have hurt yourself today.
Must have hurt myself today?
Yes, from the movie trailer.
From the movie trailer. I'm not sure what that means, but you'll tell after I announce it.
Go ahead.
My number one film of the year, Logan.
Logan, what did you do?
Charles, the world is not the same as it was. Mutants. They're gone now.
I hurt myself today.
First movie trailer. Frickin' Johnny Cash's version of Hurt. The first line of the song is I hurt myself today.
I'm a little slow, sorry. Yeah,
I think every time. No, you're not gonna get any complaints from me, man. That movie was flippin' outstanding.
Absolutely, and again, it was one of those. This was out one of the first. I think this was the first film we reviewed. Actually,
it was.
If it was not,
February,
if it wasn't the first,
yeah.
It was the second because it was early It was February it came out.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I can find out in a second, but please continue on with your.
Basically, I was sort of. When I first saw it, I was completely mesmerized, and I wondered if it would hold up all year long. I assumed it would be on my top 10, and I was wondering. It was like that was the starting point. I thought, well, boy, you can't start any better than this, and is it going to hold up all year long? Nothing knocked it off its perch, honestly. And again, I'm not saying it's the best film. Like I said, I mean, if you want to really compare, like Mother or Wind River, it's a different animal. But Logan is the one that really hit me on all cylinders. Again, you're talking about, it's a comic book movie, but it's really a film. It was, again, we talked about how, they had done X-Men movies and now they decided to do a film. Logan was the interpretation of Wolverine that we had wanted for many, many years and never really got, because he was always sort of held back by the, the comic book superhero PG and PG-13s. And again, I was nervous that when I first heard they were going to do a R-rated Wolverine, I was nervous. So we're going to get a lot of F-bombs and a lot of this. And we did. We got a lot of F-bombs. We got a lot of gore, but it worked. It worked for what it was. And I remember even sort of complaining to you, not complaining, but just, I remember glowing about it with some reservations, but even my reservations, upon reflection and having time with it, I agreed that the director had done the right moves. Like, I remember even saying to you, why do I need a girl flashing boobs in a Wolverine movie? And I've never seen that before. But the whole point was to set your expectations where they needed to be and say, this is a different film. Forget about that. You needed a couple F-bombs and you needed some violence to say, look, this is the Wolverine that we've been waiting for. So yeah, I kind of felt, and one of the things you also said when we reviewed it is that there was nothing that happened in this film by accident. Everything that happened had a reason, it had a purpose. And I believe that is absolutely true. This film really did transcend everything we've gotten prior in regard to superhero or comic book movies. It's kind of a classic Western meets superhero genre, told in the future, yet somehow feels like it could have taken place years and years ago. I just thought everything hit. The performances were incredible. You've never seen Patrick Stewart perform as great as this. Hugh Jackman is tremendous, finally coming into, again, doing the Wolverine the way we've always known it needed to be. And the first frames of the film when he gets out of the car and he says like, guys, that you're going to strip the lug nuts or whatever. You just, it just blows up from there. Like, boy, did he nail that character 100%. So yeah,
he's wanted to nail it for so long.
Yeah,
and he said it so many times in interviews and stuff how much he wanted to really showcase the character, and this was really, the Wolverine, I think, gave him and Mangold the clout to make this type of movie. And as excited as I am about Disney acquiring Fox, I worry that something like Logan is what we're going to lose under the Disney logo. I hope I'm wrong, but I kind of feel like if this is the last hurrah of the X-Men under Fox, I'm fine with that. 100%
I agree with you on your concerns, but you're right. If this were to be the last hurrah, what better way to go out? You're absolutely right. This one was the one. It's one of those where, like, look, if you don't watch any other superhero movie, watch this one and tell me this is not a great film. And it really is. It just, like I said, I could not have asked for, and it's not, and it what's great too is it's not an epic film. It doesn't assume too much. The stakes stay pretty level, and they just leave this as a character study. It does not get bogged down with special effects and all. It's story, character.
Which, if you look through the history of comic books, has always been the case. It's never been about the spectacle. It's always been about the story.
You can only do so. You're not right. You're not going to keep buying comic books unless the story is riveting and the story keeps you, on your feet. And that's what this did. It was absolutely terrific. I really did just enjoy the hell out of this film, and it just goes to show you what they can do. What creative people can do and can come up with.
Yep. There is, hey, Zack Snyder, there is a way to do a movie that's uniquely your own, but still manages to honor the characters it's based on. Just saying.
There you go.
All right, now to the fun shit.
Now we get to the turds.
I wouldn't doubt if your turd list is similar to mine, but we'll get to that.
I have a feeling it's going to be very similar, and honestly, I'm almost disappointed that there are not a lot of surprises on it. One of them will surprise you, the other two will not. We did get a lot of kind of just sort of floaters this year, like little silent but deadlies.
Just so that we're clear, this isn't like you're actually. This isn't a stinker. This is
my also noted stinker. Yeah, we're not even at the list yet. The Mummy, again, just kind of a little small fart in church. Kind of didn't find it offensive like a lot of people did, but it just, again, you see what they're trying to do, and you see how the effort they're willing to put into it, and nothing really came of it. Transformers: The Last Night. I don't know who they're making these movies for. They're not making them for me. I wouldn't call that a stinker. For me, my turds are the ones that I had high hopes for, but were disappointing. Transformers, I got no high hopes for that. I just don't know who they're making these for. I saw a couple minutes of it and shut it off, and like I said, I don't get it. One that narrowly missed being on my turd list and just got bumped off, honestly, Alien Covenant. Alien Covenant was something that should have been very good. I mean, it had a superb director. Even Prometheus, if it was not your cup of tea, they seem to be exploring new territory and going in a new direction, which had a lot of potential. And then Alien Covenant opens up, seeming to have that same sort of feel as Prometheus, seeming to want to venture into interesting new territory. And then 20 minutes into the film, it suddenly becomes a summer camp slasher film, where every silly trope of a summer camp slasher movie starts to happen, and everybody is doing stupid things and paying the price for it. The characterization of the spiritual holy person believer versus the scientific person, again, something I had high hopes would be interesting, but instead became very typical cliche. And again, it just went this whole different direction and forgot about everything that was potentially interesting to turn Alien into this just a weird slasher film and lose all the suspense of the original Alien films. Or I should say the first two Alien films anyway. And there's also one that I want to mention, and it's honestly not. This is not a stinker, and it's not a turd, and it's not even an also mention. It's kind of an asterisk in the column on the left. Just something I wanted to mention really quick. Beauty and the Beast. Now, I'm not gonna. Yeah.
We know why my feelings on this.
Basically,
This
is sort of my Valentine to you. Is I'm gonna let you sort of say I told you so. I would not call this a stink bomb because again, if this is what you're looking for, if you're a big fan of the original, if you're a big fan of Disney, you're gonna enjoy this film. You're gonna enjoy it just fine. It's a competent film. It looks fine, and it if you want to see a real life adaptation of that cartoon, well, there you go. You'll enjoy it and sleep well. I remember last year I had The Jungle Book on my top 10 list. It was my number 10. The Jungle Book to me was the kind of story that really lent itself to this sort of genre where because again, you couldn't do a film with a young boy in the actual jungle surrounded by actual wild animals in a dangerous situation. So I thought doing this kind of a film really sort of lent itself to this. I thought that it had a great style. It was beautiful looking, but it works for this kind of a thing. I thought it just fit perfectly. Beauty and the Beast, is literally now just a shot-for-shot remake with live actors on animation, some realistic looking settings versus in some non-real. Now begs the question why. It was better done as a cartoon. It was better done. And Beauty and the Beast is not even that old. Jungle Book was, way back when. Beauty and the Beast, I guess, was from the late 80s, I think. So, again, I watched this, and I, just like you said last year, I say, what's the point? What's the point of redoing it if you're not going to bring anything new to the table, if it's not going to even look or feel much different? It just felt like an exercise in, okay, let's put some real actors on top of the cartoon actors and see what happens. And people will go see it, sure. So, again, I'm not calling it a stinker, but I am kind of calling it a head scratcher, saying, why do we need this? And saying, Dave, you were right.
Second wave! Die!
My top 3 turds for the year. Number 3 will be the only one that is mildly surprising. Number 3, Train Spotting 2.
Choose life. Choose Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and hope that someone, somewhere cares.
Missed you, mate.
I missed you too, Spud. Choose looking up old flames, wishing you'd done it all differently.
Do you still take heroin?
No. And choose watching history repeat itself.
Don't know if you caught it, huh?
Yes, I had no interest, honestly. I was like, you're 20 years too late for a sequel, which was kind of a moment in time. You know, I'm not expecting much at all. So you can just, you can kiss the baby.
It wasn't like I was running out to see this one either, but I did enjoy the first one a lot. I thought it was pretty, it was well done. Music is great. And you're right, it was a moment in time. So when I heard that they were going to go back, and it was the same director, was going to go back and revisit, and again, we've, Rocky Balboa, we've talked about aging characters. There is a place for it. So I went in with an open mind and just said, okay, let's see what these characters are doing. They're not doing much. I was very surprised at how sort of uninteresting and this, it was the story that really kind of went nowhere, and that really surprised me. They visited a couple characters, and they probably, were pretty accurate in where they would be right around now. But the main character kind of sort of pops back into town.
Ewan McGregor? Jesus Christ.
Ewan McGregor's character shows up kind of for no reason, kind of pays everyone to visit and sees where everybody is. And some people are, have moved on a little bit. Some people have not. Some people are still struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And he seems to be the only character who's doing anything with his life. And he's just sort of here to visit. At some point halfway through, he kind of changes course and decides to pull a heist with somebody and get back into trouble and whatever. And it's like, where did that come from? So now I'm sitting there watching this going, what is the point of this? So, and by the end, it sort of turns into just a low budget heist movie that doesn't really go anywhere, and there's no real big twists and turns or whatever. And then it's over. And it's like, all right, there's Train Spotting 2. Nothing happened. Nothing. I mean, for something that had such promise. I mean, again, it was a great movie years ago, and I thought if all the players are still there, the director's still there, and I even think that there was more to the original novel that it was based on, that they were able to mine more material from. I thought, okay, well, that's something we can work with, and let's see what they do with it. And it ain't much. It really was not much, and it just, again, not a massive disappointment, but there's a turd sandwich that you have to sort of tie in with the other one.
And number two.
Not a surprise here, I'm sure. Justice League.
What are your superpowers again?
I'm rich.
Actually, a tiny bit of a surprise.
Only because you know it's number one.
Yes.
Nothing really more to say about Justice League. We've been over and over, and frankly, I feel like we reviewed it before it even came out, because you knew where this whole train wreck was headed, and I felt like they completely delivered on exactly what we expected.
We were expecting a train wreck, and we weren't disappointed.
And if anything did surprise me, was that they, in trying to save it, they cut it to shreds and put it back together again to give you something that was just perfectly lukewarm. So not only was it a train wreck, it was sort of a reheated train wreck. No feeling in it, nothing really interesting about it, nothing. It feels like something that should have happened 15 years ago. Everything was just felt outdated before it even came out. The CGI was bad. The story was lackluster. So that's it. I'm sad to see what happened to these great DC characters. And again, it's not a bash on DC. It's a bash against the DC films not doing justice to the great comic characters. And I hope at some point this train wreck gets back on track, but I will not hold my breath.
No, I'm not going to hold my breath either. All right, well, let's not keep the audience in suspense, because I'm pretty sure that anybody that's been listening to this for the entire year, they know exactly what you're going to say.
Yes, they do. Number 1, worst film of the year, The Last Jedi.
I've seen this raw strength only once before. It didn't scare me enough then. It
us now.
And potentially the last Star Wars movie you'll ever pay to see.
Well, I tell you what, honestly, if it were not for the fact that we are doing this podcast, if we are going to review them as they come out, I tell you what, I think you're right. I think Star Wars is officially dead to me. The Last Jedi to me was the cinematic equivalent of...
Get a life, will you, people?
It frankly just felt like not only did this film, and again, I don't have to get into it too much because we just reviewed it 2 weeks ago. I added to the pile on last week. I'll just say this one, it felt like a giant middle finger to Star Wars fans, and not just the original fans. It absolutely flips off any fans of the original trilogy and the original characters, but it flips off the recent fans who got on board with the half-baked script that was The Force Awakens. That half-done, let's rush this out real fast, and any loose hanging plot threads we'll address in the next one. If you got on board with that and you trusted it and you said, okay, they'll, and if you got excited about it, if you were dumb enough, I mean, this film made you feel stupid if you got excited and put some thought and effort into, well, who are Rey's parents? Who is Snoke? Who is this? Why did the lightsaber show up there?
You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
It made you feel like a fool for falling for it. And the film basically tells you, get a life, it's just a movie. And I don't even have to get into the fact that they replaced it with a lot of SJW nonsense. And again, I don't like going down that road, but when it's right there slapping you in the face over and over, it's hard not to comment on it. And then we get The Force Awakens, which again is a rushed script, an incomplete script, and I'm realizing now that there was never a 3-part story in place when they started filming.
Which this was their first opportunity to actually
and instead
do.
they rushed the script out real fast, and they literally just said, well, all these loose plot threads, we'll fix it another time. And then you get The Last Jedi, which basically goes, there you go, there's your plot threads, go home. And by the way, I'll cap that off by saying, there was even an online petition that somebody put together that to try to get The Last Jedi stripped from canon. It's that bad. People are so horrified by how they treated one of their most beloved characters that they actually tried a petition, to which I would normally say, guys, forget it. Just forget it. No, just forget it. And you got your first 3 movies, just take them home and watch them and be happy with that. But I can't even say that because we can't even get copies of the original trilogy without George Lucas's annoying special edition changes, which ruin those movies. So again, I offer you, has any franchise mistreated its fans as terribly as this one has? If we were not here to review films, I'd probably just be done. I wouldn't even bother with the next one. I hate to say it. Have I ranted enough?
Wow. And on that note, I don't know. You've basically been, I mean, it was not a surprise to me. You've basically been ranting about The Last Jedi for the past 3 podcasts.
Yeah.
So it's not really a surprise. And I get the feeling that you're going to go for a 4th time very soon.
It's coming. I tell you what, it's I'm going to try not to, because like I said, the funny thing is that this one, if you asked me a month ago, right? Now, again, putting together my top 10, and I know enough not to shut the door on the top 10 until I've seen The Last Jedi, and if you asked me a month ago, where do you think it'll be? I would have assumed that we were talking about whether or not it would end up on my top 10. I would never have guessed it would have been my worst film of the year. My biggest disappointment this year. I would never have guessed. So if in terms of surprises, that is what surprises me about this.
I can feel
that. I mean,
that.
it's heartbreaking. I mean, I am a classic Star Wars fan, so it's tough.
At some point, dude, we do have to put our toys away, I guess.
There you go. That's what they say. But then again, there is Han Solo coming out next year, which I have already got. I'm already nervous for that one. And again, that's.
You know what? You know what's funny? I was the one that was trying to temper you on that one. It's like, no, there's no reason to do this damn movie. And you're like, well, there's stuff that, someone could do. I kind of feel like that. I feel like we're going to have a role reversal on that one. That when it actually comes out, you and I might actually switch positions. Who knows?
Possibly. I mean, I was optimistic for it. Put it this way, there's 2 different discussions. One is whether or not we should or want to see a Han Solo movie to begin with. The other discussion is will they pull it off? My answers for both are different. I kind of feel like, well, we could if they did it right. I don't mind. I mean, again, once the Star Wars series is sort of done, which it kind of is, you know, where do you go from there? Do you just let it lie and walk away, or do you explore other things? And I've always said I see the Star Wars universe as being a playground that is rich enough to sort of go back and revisit. I've always said there are other stories. I mean, we've had good novelizations, good comics, good things, you know, that tell you that there are stories to be told here. So I'm not averse to the idea of them going back and looking, you know, revisiting some aspects of it. It's just, I can't, they're just blowing it. And not to mention, I still, by the way, feel that Rogue One was a great movie. I still feel that Rogue One was really well done. I feel like that was much more in tune of what I would like to see them do in this universe than any nonsense that we're getting in these episodes.
Well, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we have finished Joe's 2017 Top 10 and Top 3 Stinkers.
That's it.
So
it was a good year, 2017. And but yeah, next week it's Dave's Top 10 for the year.
Spotlight goes on me.
Will we be similar? Will we be far apart?
You know what, dude? We're not going to be completely similar.
Okay, I'm sure there will be a few that we will both share, but yeah, no, I'm expecting.
Yeah, I'm reasonably sure there's a couple that you're going to be kind of surprised about, so I'm kind of looking forward to it.
I believe it.
But on that note, ladies and gentlemen, you have a great night. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
2018, and we will see you in a week.
See you next week. Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. And be sure to check out the Reviews Without Remorse channel on YouTube and VidMe for spoiler-free reviews of new releases, as well as in-depth discussions of current and classic cinema. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can find our page at patreon.com. As little as $1 a month goes a long way. All clips in this podcast are used for commentary and critique, and is considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.